The phone rang at exactly 7:43 p.m. I remember the number because I'd been staring at that same digital clock for years, waiting for it to light up with something other than silence. 20 years of waiting. And on an ordinary December night, it finally did. At first, I thought it was a scam call. Telemarketers seem to know when you're eating dinner alone. But something made me pick it up. Maybe instinct. Maybe the universe finally deciding I'd waited long enough. "Dad?" The word froze me mid-breath. It was a voice I hadn't heard since he was 21, full of confidence back then, resentment even fuller. Now it was older, heavier, cautious. "Nick?" I asked, my voice low, steady, though my hands trembled. He laughed awkwardly, the same nervous laugh he used when he'd break something as a kid and try to hide it behind his back. "Yeah, it's me. Have you been?" How have I been? I wanted to say lonely. I wanted to say forgotten. But all I managed was alive. He cleared his throat. "Well, listen, Christmas is coming up. Melissa and I were talking, and we thought it'd be nice to finally get together. You know, spend some family time." Family time. Those two words hit harder than I expected. The last time I'd seen my son, he'd been storming out of my house, shouting that I was a failure, that his mother was right, that I'd never amount to anything. And now, 2 decades later, after endless letters returned unopened, birthdays missed, and holidays spent alone, he wanted family time. "I'm surprised," I said carefully. 20 years without a word, and suddenly I'm on the Christmas guest list. Why now? He hesitated, just long enough for the truth to hang between us. Then he chuckled, forced. "Come on, Dad, do we need a reason? It's Christmas. Let's just forget the past." Forget the past. As if 2 decades of silence could be erased like chalk from a board. I was about to decline to hang up and return to my solitude, when something in his tone shifted. "I heard about the news," he said casually, but I could hear the calculation beneath. "The lottery win. 15 million, huh?" There it was. The reason. I let the silence stretch, let him sweat through it. "It's funny," I said finally, "how fast the word travels when money's involved." "Dad, come on, that's not why I called," he said quickly. "We just thought it'd be good to reconnect. You're not getting any younger, and neither am I." I almost laughed. "You're right, Nick. We're both older. Maybe wiser, too." He sounded relieved. "So, you'll come?" "Christmas Eve, at our place. 6 o'clock. I looked around my quiet little house, the one I'd bought after the divorce, after he and his mother walked out without looking back. The walls were still filled with silence, but tonight, that silence felt different. He didn't know it, but I was done being the victim of it. "I'll be there," I said calmly. "And Nick?" "Yeah?" "I have a surprise for you." A pause. Then that greedy brightness entered his tone.
"A surprise? What kind of surprise?"
"You'll see," I said. After hanging up, I stood for a long time in my kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand. Outside, snow had begun to fall, soft, steady, indifferent. The same snow that had fallen the night I lost everything. I walked to the living room and opened an old photo album. There we were, me, Nick, and his mother, smiling in front of a Christmas tree 25 years ago, back before betrayal, before greed, before silence became our family's only language. The past had been cruel, yes, but it had also been instructive. 20 years of loneliness had taught me patience, and patience, I'd learned, was the perfect soil for revenge. As the snow thickened outside, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and whispered into the quiet room. "Merry Christmas, Nicholas. This year you'll finally get what you've been waiting for." I didn't sleep that night. The house creaked in the cold, the radiator ticking like a metronome while old memories marched past in perfect time. If I was going to walk into my son's home after 20 years and hand him a surprise, I needed to remember exactly why the surprise was necessary. It started the winter his mother left. Mara had a talent for timing her exits to hurt the most. She packed on a Thursday, the first heavy snow of the season, dusting the porch, and announced she was moving in with a man who took her to restaurants where the menus didn't print prices. Nick needs stability, she said, snapping a suitcase shut. He needs examples of success. She glanced at my work boots, drying by the heater. Her smile was thin, not excuses. I followed her gaze to those boots. They'd paid for everything: mortgage, groceries, school trips, one overtime shift at a time. I wanted to tell her success doesn't always wear a suit. But Nick was 21 and angry, and anger is loud. He stood beside her, arms folded, jaw tight, in a way that made him look older and unfamiliar. "Mom's right," he said. "You always aim small." They left me with 2 rooms of furniture and a house that echoed. That first Christmas, I set one plate at the table and couldn't touch my food. Grief, I discovered, has edges. If you press hard enough, it cuts you into shape. I poured myself into work, first the day job, then what came after. Every night I walked neighborhoods other people avoided and wrote down addresses of tired houses with strong bones. I learned the language of quiet value: cracked driveways that could be mended, sagging gutters that only looked like defeat, faded paint disguising cedar siding. While everyone else chased shinier things, I learned patience and math. The first place was a duplex with a listing photo taken on a gray day, bad angle, worse lighting, perfect. I scraped paint until my shoulders burned, replaced copper I couldn't really afford, learned to sweat pipe and set tile from library books, and a kind old plumber named Hal who'd trade lessons for coffee. 6 months later, the rent paid the note. I did it again and again. Slow, boring, safe. The opposite of what my son and his mother prized. I didn't get rich. Not then. I just got steady. I took the same truck to the same hardware store so often the cashier saved me the good contractor pencils. I stacked small wins until they formed a wall between me and the version of myself Mara had named Not Enough. Years later, luck knocked. I was buying coffee at a gas station off Highway 2, hands cold, breath fogging when a cheap scratch-off ticket winked at me from the plastic stand. People talk about jackpots like thunder, but they fall like snow, quiet, all at once, covering everything you thought you knew. 15 million. Headlines. Flashbulbs. Cousins I'd never met, learning to pronounce inheritance. Not Nick. Not then. He stayed silent while I disappeared from the papers and reappeared in spreadsheets. I treated the windfall like a storm credit. Pay off every note, button down the portfolio, keep living like the man who'd earned steady before he lucked into loud. The money didn't change who I was. It just amplified whatever I decided to become. And now Nick had decided to remember my number. I closed the album and opened a file folder I'd kept, like a quiet promise. Copies of returned letters, the voicemail logs with timestamps of calls that never connected, a printout of the message he'd sent the night his startup went under. Busy. Can't talk. I tucked in one last page, the screenshot of the local business journal announcing my win. The timestamp was funny, if you liked dark humor. He called 41 minutes after the article hit. "Family time," he'd said. Maybe, but this time, the timing would belong to me. I dialed 3 numbers before dawn. My attorney, a process server who knew how to arrive exactly when a room got very quiet, and a reporter who owed me a favor and liked stories that started warm and turned cold. Then I made one more call to a hospital records liaison I'd helped years ago with a landlord dispute. "I'll send you what I can publicly release," she said carefully. "And what you can't?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Be here at 11. Snow squeaked under my boots as I stepped outside to warm the truck. The air tasted like pennies, metallic, electric right before a storm. For 20 years, I'd let other people decide what I deserved. Not anymore. By noon, the folder in my passenger seat was thicker. My plan had a spine. At 6 on Christmas Eve, I would ring my son's doorbell with a wrapped box he couldn't wait to open. Inside wouldn't be money. It would be the truth. The following days blurred into a rhythm of quiet preparation. Outside, Lincoln wore its December disguise, calm, white, gentle. Inside my house, every sound had purpose. The scratch of pen on paper, the low hum of the printer, the soft click of email drafts being sent to exactly the right people. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns too fast to be useful. What I felt now was precision, the kind that comes when a man realizes that justice can move slowly and still arrive right on time. On the third morning, my phone buzzed. A number I hadn't saved, but I knew the voice before she spoke. "Stanley, it's Mara." Hearing her after 2 decades was like stepping into a house you once lived in. Everything looked familiar, but wrong. "I suppose this isn't a social call," I said. She sighed, the same exhale she used to use when she was about to ask for something. "Don't start. I know things ended badly between us, but we're still family. And Nicholas, well, he's in trouble." "Trouble?" I asked, though I already knew. "Yes. His business fell apart. Investors are threatening lawsuits. The bank's after him. It's been hard. You know how risky startups are these days." Her tone was calm, practiced the same false empathy she'd used when explaining why she was leaving me all those years ago. I stayed quiet long enough for her to fill the silence. "He doesn't like asking for help," she continued. "But with your recent good fortune, we thought maybe—" "You thought maybe I could pay to fix it," I said flatly. A beat. Then, "Stanley, it's not about that. It's about doing what's right for your family." There it was again, that word she'd weaponized so well. Family. Always the reason, never the reality. I could hear Nicholas in the background, whispering something. Then her voice came back, softer. "Please, he's your son. He just needs a little help getting back on his feet." "How much?" I asked. She hesitated, pretending to calculate. 200,000, maybe 3, just to keep things stable. I almost laughed. "That's a lot of stability." "It's temporary," she said quickly. "Once his investors settle, he'll pay you back. You'll see." The way she said it, "you'll see," hit me in the gut. She'd used those same words 20 years ago, when she took my son, my house, and half my life. "I'll think about it," I said. "Tell Nicholas I'll call him tomorrow." I hung up before she could speak again. That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark, watching the snow gather on my windowsill. The cold outside was nothing compared to the frost that had settled between us years ago. I didn't hate them anymore. I simply saw them clearly. For 20 years, they'd mistaken my silence for weakness. They'd confused forgiveness with foolishness. But the man they left behind wasn't the one answering their calls now. I poured another drink, turned on the small lamp by the window, and opened the thick folder again. Inside were the pieces of a story they'd written, and I'd just finished editing. Nicholas's company, Brooks Tech Solutions, had left a trail longer than he realized. Unpaid invoices, burned investors, and a dozen complaints filed under misrepresentation of funds. All public record, all traceable. And Mara, the once charming, manipulative woman who could make tears fall on command, had her own skeletons, fake charity drives, a cancer fundraiser that never sent the money where it was supposed to. Dozens of online donations routed through her medical recovery account. I had everything I needed. At midnight, I drafted a simple note addressed to both of them. "Thank you for inviting me to Christmas. I'll bring something very special this year, something you've both earned." I didn't sign it. I folded it carefully, slid it into a red envelope, and sealed it with one word written across the front in black ink. Truth. When the clock struck 1, I placed the envelope beside the wrapped box waiting on my table. A single gift for 2 people who had forgotten what love without conditions looked like. For 20 years they'd given me silence. Now I was going to give them sound. The sound of consequences. Christmas Eve arrived dressed in perfect irony, clear skies, fresh snow, and that false, cozy stillness that fools people into thinking the world is kind. I ironed my only good shirt, not because I wanted to impress them, but because control starts with details. By 6 o'clock, I was standing at the edge of a neighborhood that screamed new money, wide driveways, oversized wreaths, lights blinking in perfect rhythm. Their house was no different, maybe a little flashier. A silver SUV parked in the drive, the kind of vehicle people lease to look successful. The windows glowed warm from inside, but it wasn't warmth I felt. It was anticipation. I rang the bell once. The door opened, and there was Nicholas, older, heavier around the middle, his hairline creeping back, but his smile was practiced, like a salesman spotting a potential deal. "Dad, you made it!" He hugged me too tightly, too long, the kind of embrace that says, "Look how close we are for anyone watching." Behind him, Mara appeared in a dress that sparkled a little too much under the chandelier. Her voice was syrup sweet. "Stanley, it's been too long." 20 years, I corrected gently, almost to the day. We stood there in that awkward triangle, the man who was supposed to be family, the woman who taught him greed, and the ghost they thought had disappeared for good. "Well," she said quickly, "come in. Dinner's ready. We've been waiting for you." Inside, everything gleamed, but nothing felt real. Gold-rimmed plates, overpriced candles, a centerpiece so large you couldn't see the person across the table. It was all display, no soul, no sincerity. Nicholas poured wine like a host on television, telling stories about business deals I knew were fake. "We're expanding into AI integration," he said, gesturing grandly. "Big things coming." I nodded, sipping my wine. "That's wonderful, son. I hope your investors feel the same way." He blinked, confused for half a second, before forcing another smile. Mara changed the subject fast. "Stanley, we were just talking about your incredible luck with the lottery. 15 million, wasn't it?" "Yes," I said. Funny how luck works. Some people wait their whole lives for it. Some try to take shortcuts. Silence slid across the table. Nicholas cleared his throat.
So, Dad, you mentioned a surprise on the phone. We've been dying to know.
"After dinner," I said calmly. "Some gifts shouldn't be opened on an empty stomach." Mara laughed a little too loudly.
You always did love your mysteries.
The meal passed in waves of small talk and rehearsed smiles. Every now and then I caught Mara glancing toward the hallway where I assumed their phones were charging. Waiting, maybe, for a message confirming my account balance hadn't changed. Finally, dessert arrived, a pie that looked store-bought, dressed up with fake whipped cream. I pushed my plate back. "Shall we?" I asked. Nicholas's eyes lit up. The surprise. I reached for the wrapped box sitting beside my chair. Simple brown paper, red ribbon, no tag. I set it in the middle of the table. "Go ahead," I said. "It's for both of you." Mara leaned forward, her manicured fingers trembling slightly. "Oh, Stanley, you didn't have to." "I did," I interrupted. "You earned this." She pulled the ribbon. The paper tore softly. Inside was a sleek black folder, heavy, full. She frowned, confused, then opened it. Her eyes skimmed the first page, then froze. Nicholas leaned over, scanning quickly. His face drained of color. What is this?" "Proof," I said simply. "Bank statements, donation records, investor contracts, screenshots, everything the authorities need." Mara's voice cracked. You went through my accounts?" "I didn't have to. They were already public, just hidden under layers of lies." Nicholas slammed the folder shut. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't." "Oh, I already did." The knock at the door came exactly on cue, sharp, deliberate. Mara flinched. Nicholas turned pale. "Expecting someone?" I asked. He hesitated, then opened the door. 2 men in dark coats stood there. "Nicholas Brooks?" One asked. "You've been served." The envelope fell open in his hands. Lawsuit filings. Multiple pages thick. His voice faltered. This is impossible." I sipped my wine, savoring the quiet between his panic and realization. "Merry Christmas, son," I said softly. "Looks like you're finally getting what you deserve." Mara's face twisted between fury and disbelief. "You did this?" "I didn't create the lies," I replied. "I just made sure the right people saw them." The room went still, the hum of Christmas carols from the next house faintly audible through the window. Nicholas looked like a man standing on the edge of an avalanche, realizing too late that he'd started it himself. I rose from the table, straightened my jacket, and glanced once more at the black folder between them. I told you I had a surprise. Then I smiled. And surprises, I added, are best. The moment I stepped outside their house, the cold air hit like a baptism. The door closed behind me, muffling the chaos inside raised voices, the sound of papers being flung, and somewhere in between, the shattering of a perfect illusion. I stood on the driveway for a moment, breathing in the silence that followed 20 years of noise. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked toward the truck. The street was lined with families visible through their windows, laughing, unwrapping presents, living the version of Christmas Nicholas had tried to fake. Inside that house, greed was clawing at the walls. Out here, I finally felt free. Halfway down the block, my phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know who it was. I let it ring until it stopped. By the time I got home, the first call had turned into 5, then 10, then 12. Messages, each one more frantic than the last. Dad, please call me. Stanley, we can fix this. We'll explain everything. Don't do this to your own family. The word family again like a broken record that didn't realize the song was over. I poured myself a drink, sat by the window and listened to the storm build. Not outside in their world. Inside mine, everything was still, peaceful, even. The next morning, the headlines confirmed what I already knew would happen. Local startup founder faces fraud investigation. Another, Lincoln woman accused of faking cancer donations. Their photos were everywhere, Nicholas looking defiant, Mara attempting remorse. By noon, the calls stopped. In the following weeks, I learned things in fragments, the way gossip always travels in small doses. Their assets were frozen. The investors I'd spoken to moved fast, relentless. The fake charity accounts? Seized. Mara's foundation page vanished overnight. A mutual acquaintance from my old real estate circles told me Nicholas tried to claim I'd framed him. No one believed it. His own records did the talking. As for Mara, she'd tried to disappear online, but the internet doesn't forgive. Every lie leaves breadcrumbs. She went from polished photos and designer handbags to grainy mugshots and a plea deal. And me? I went back to my life, the quiet one, the one they'd mocked as small. Funny thing about small lives, they hold more truth than the grand ones ever could. Spring came early that year. I planted new grass out front, replaced the creaking step on my porch. My neighbors waved as I worked. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel like the man left behind. One afternoon, while sorting mail, I found an envelope with handwriting I recognized immediately. Nicholas. No return address, just 4 words across the back flap. Please, read this, Dad. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single page, an apology written in uneven lines. He said he was sorry for what he'd done, sorry for the years lost, sorry that he only came back when I had something he wanted. At the end, he asked, "Is there any chance we can start over?" I read it twice, then set it on my desk. For a long time, I stared at it, waiting for anger, sadness, nostalgia, something. But what I felt was peace. Because the truth was, I'd already started over, just not with him. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in the same folder where I'd kept all the return cards from years ago, and closed it for good. Outside, the sun was setting over Lincoln, turning the snow gold. I poured a cup of coffee, opened the back door, and let the cold wind fill the room. It smelled like fresh starts. For 20 years, they'd left me with silence. This time, I chose it. Because silence, when you've earned it, isn't loneliness. It's freedom. And that was the real surprise all along.